Hello everybody and welcome to DDNet After Dark, the stream in which we look at games that are a little bit more edgy, I guess, usually a bit of fan service. That's what it's been in the streams to date. But today we're looking at one that doesn't really have much fan service. However, it is definitely the kind of game that you wanted to play, I guess, with a couple of beers at night. It's one of those kind of artsy, late at night games that, if you remember the TV of yesteryear, if you're as old as I am, and you remember kind of watching Rage, which was an Australian TV music show that really focused on highlighting the indies and the rock artists and the kind of stuff that you wouldn't see during normal hours of television. That's what this game certainly fits in the same mold as an After Dark game. So yes, this is a horror themed kind of investigation visual novel / adventure game mix. It's kind of unique. It doesn't really belong to any particular genre, but it is good. It is very, very good. This is a game that I played for the first time last year or 2 years ago now. I haven't been able to get it out of my mind since. So yes, definitely looking forward to showing this one off, having a chat with you all about it, and yeah, hopefully convincing you to give it a go, I think, is the main point of this one, because this is a game that certainly hasn't, a lot of people that I think would like it haven't had a chance to experience it or haven't really looked at it that closely in the past. So that's the point of this stream tonight. I'm going to give people a moment or two to log their way in. Hopefully we get at least one or two people to jump on and say hello, because as always, these streams are hard to do when you're yelling into the void and talking to yourself. So hopefully it's all working okay, and we have a couple of people who are able to join us. So let's give everybody a moment or two, and then we'll jump into the stream. Hello, Divvy Ram, and hello, Christian. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I do agree, all games should start with a Marx quote. I can't remember if this one does, but I think as a Marxist, you will enjoy this one, Dizzy. This one has some themes going through it. It's a very serious toned game, actually. It really does hit some pretty topical stuff pretty hard. So I actually do think you'll enjoy this one. And hello, Christian, again. Welcome to the stream. I don't know if you've had a chance to play this game or not, but I think that you're going to enjoy it too. I would honestly recommend this game to just about everybody, because I think that it honestly is it is a special work, and it's one of those rare kind of artsy indie games that really deserves a lot of attention and won't ever get it. Oh, good. I'm glad you've had a chance to play it. Christian, yes, that's excellent. I'm glad we'll be able to chat along with the stuff as we come along. And I promise you, Dithy, there is not a single panty shot in this one. It has some moments that are, I guess there's some imagery in there that is a little sexual in nature, but it's done in context. It's certainly not done for fan service sake. So this is a different game to the other stuff we played for the DDNet After Dark. I promise. Okay, so we'll jump straight into a new game. I won't do New Game Plus, because that will ruin it for anybody who might be watching this stream and hasn't played it before. But once you do finish the game, you do unlock New Game Plus. There's something like 13, 14, 15 endings or something in Tokyo Dark. And a lot of them you would not be able to get the first time around, I believe. So this game certainly encourages you to repeat play, and once you understand, I guess, the base narrative, to replay it with that in mind as you go along. Oh, cool. I'm glad my recommendation got through to somebody. I'm never quite sure if my reviews actually convince people to buy games or not. Am I sure I want to start a new game? My current progress will be lost. Yes, that's right. Last time I played this game was so long ago, I wouldn't remember where I'm up to anyway. So as you can see, autosave makes every decision final. You're really encouraged to play this game based on how your own moral code would direct you to, and it will lead you to make decisions that are pretty tough. And yeah, you have to live with those decisions. So I do like a visual novel when it does that. I don't know what this one's priced at the moment. I think it's pretty cheap, especially on PC. It's been around since since 2017 or thereabouts. So it should be pretty cheap now if you want to go and check it out after the stream. So straight away, we are in a rather spooky kind of environment. There are things happening. There are pictures on the wall. So as you'll see straight away, this has got a pretty simple setup in terms of how it plays, the mechanics and whatever. You can move around the environment free, and then you can find points of interest, and then you can investigate them, pick them up if they're objects and all that stuff. Yeah, it's definitely a cheap game, and I think it is worth much more than that, just in terms of the raw amount of playability and whatever. It's not a super short visual novel. You do get the many multiple replays and many multiple endings, so just in terms of real content, it's worth well and truly above what it charges. And I guess that's part of the reason that we haven't got the sequel. They were working on a second one, but unfortunately they've had to call quits to that, put it on hold indefinitely. From the little bit of art that we saw, it was looking pretty good too, unfortunately. But that's the industry we live in these days. It's very hard to be an indie and survive. Hello, welcome. Glad you could join us for this stream. I don't know if you've had a chance to play Tokyo Dark at this stage, but if you haven't, hopefully, as I said in my little intro that I said before, maybe you jumped on. Hopefully I convinced you to give this one a go, because I know it's not a JRPG, you usually like your JRPGs, but this one is a very worthy game that is very strongly narrative driven and has a cracking story to tell. Absolutely amazing, this one. You don't trust her either? Well, that's certainly a way to take this character. She can be very unreliable narratory if you play it in a certain way, which is great. It is an investigation game. It's got a bit of a hard-boiled noir theme running through it, which is pretty neat. Sorry about that. I keep forgetting to turn the little pop-ups off. So, yes, we can now all see that you're playing Xenoblade Chronicles in the background. Okay, so as the name of the game suggests, everything that happens in this game is based in Tokyo. It takes you to various places that are well known within Tokyo and the larger Tokyo metropolitan area, and it has a really, like I said before, a very noirish take on it. So we're used to seeing the parts, all the kind of touristy parts of Tokyo, Asakusa, Shinjuku, Kamakura, and they're all kind of very beautiful places to visit, or at least kind of concrete playgrounds, which are all exciting and full of energy. But as you can see here, this one's a little bit different in tone. So after all of that introduction, basically what's happened is that your partner has gone missing. For some reason, the GPS on his phone is now directing you here, so you've gone to investigate what's happened to him. And I'll quickly show you one other thing. This game has this kind of system where you get points plus or minus based on your actions, and that can affect how the story plays out. So if you do too many things that make you lose sanity points, then the story starts to go in a very different way than if you are much more focused on staying kind of cool-headed and not exposing yourself to the particularly horrible things that you get a chance to see through this game. Yes, it has very gorgeous art, and it's not a JRPG, but it has some very kind of a very kind of JRPG approach to storytelling and kind of character interactions, which you'll see as we play along. Possibly like Kara no Sujo. I mean, I'll let you kind of decide that for yourself as we go a little bit further on. I think of it more as a kind of point and clicker than a pure visual novel, but we'll see that soon enough. So if we go into this little village, there's still, building here. Note that one's closed. So that was a chicken shop. Not going to get some chicken now, unfortunately. In my opinion, the smaller a chicken skewer place is, the better. At least that's what I used to tell Kazuki. I gotta say, I agree with her there. In the local area, whenever I go to Japan, in the local area where my house is, or my in-laws' house is that we stay at, there is this little chicken karaage, which is fried chicken, a tiny little chicken shop, which is just off the train station. So the first thing we do when we get off the plane is grab some of this chicken, and it is the perfect introduction to Japan. It's just amazingly cooked chicken. So I agree with her. That's what I'm saying. Butterfly Club, that sounds good to me. Hostess Bar. Very seedy kind of entertainment establishment is a hostess bar. Basically, for people who don't know, hostess clubs are where lovely women, very dressed up women, very attractive women, sit down with usually older men and drink with them and talk with them. Now, there's nothing sexual that actually happens at these bars, though you can obviously guess where it kind of leads if the man becomes a repeat customer. But yeah, they have that kind of reputation of being right on the cusp of being something a little bit dodgy. But they're legitimate businesses, and they tend to be very expensive. They nickel and dime you something severe. You'll spend a lot of money for just a beer and the privilege of having a beautiful woman sitting next to you, talking to you. It does have a bit of a World of Darkness vibe. Yes, absolutely. That's a good way of thinking of it. So we are now in the hostess club. As we can see, the woman serving the drinks is all dressed up, and the man looks like a bit of a loser. Let's have a chat with him. He's a bit of a pig. I mean, I guess that was a bit of a plot spoiler, but you can probably tell just from his sprite. He's not the nicest looking man out there, and you can just imagine how the characterization of this character goes. That's gross. This guy's gross. Not so much promote lookism as such as, I guess, realistically depict the kind of clientele that these clubs tend to attract. It's very salaryman, middle-aged men that tend to be interested in going along to these clubs, and that's just a reality. That's the business model for them. And they tend to go there because obviously they're looking to chat with the women. That's a big part of the appeal of these things. That's why you pay $20 for a single beer or thousands of dollars for a bottle of the better champagne, as they kind of encourage you to do. So this character, this hostess, is not particularly keen on chatting with us. I wonder if it's an issue she has with the police. Let's find out. So this is the first kind of decision we get to make within the game. We can either order a drink, and hopefully that will encourage her to be a little bit more chatty with us. But that, of course, comes with the consequences that we will be less sober immediately. Or we can refuse and keep our wits about us, but may not get the information that we need out of her. I'm going to opt to refuse, because I'm going to be the professional detective here. No drinking on the job. Just hard drinking afterwards. See, I got 5 points to my proficiency there. Professionalism, sorry. No proficiency. Okay, and now she refuses to talk to me any further, so I'm not going to get any more information out of her right now. Now, one thing I do want to say, we probably won't get a chance to get a sense of it from this play tonight, just because, you know, we're limited in time. We're not going to play through the whole game in one go. But you do actually get a chance to kind of go back and constantly talk to a lot of these characters and get to know them through the narrative. It kind of keeps winding back to the same set of characters, and the stories behind them really do become compelling as you go along. So it's not so much about meeting new characters constantly as it is having that group of characters within a range of different environments and learning quite a lot about each of them. So we've got here, there's another building. But it's locked, so we can't get in right now. We'll skip that one. Yes, it's very easy to be very unprofessional in especially some of the things that you kind of have to do as you go along. Actually keeping your professionalism going is quite a challenge, because you're constantly encouraged to do things that are not by the book as such, and be the very noirish detective, very Humphrey Bogart, Big Sleep style detective. You're very much encouraged to do that quite often. Okay, so we get to meet another fella. As you can see, he's running a pretty rundown place. There's big cracks in the wall there. He doesn't look too happy either. Must not be enjoying his job much. I do like the cat. They have a very lovely cat. So obviously he wasn't just her partner in work. They obviously have a relationship going as well. They even have a cat. Very personal for her. So even though her boss told her to to hang and wait for backup to appear. Obviously, she's not going to do that. It's quite a depressing little quote there. Mostly I just sit alone, wiping down the counter over and over again. That there is a metaphor for life, especially right now. I'm having a lot of people jump online. Sorry to anybody who's watching back and sees themselves in the corner. I really should remember to turn that off with the switch. But I have this weird thing where I like to know what my buddies are actually playing while I play games myself. So, especially on a Friday night, everybody's jumping on, especially on a night where Xenoblade Chronicles got released. Everybody's looking to get some gaming time in. Okay, anyway. He hasn't got much for us right now, but he's in a pretty important part of town, so I'm sure we'll get to meet him again at some point. So that's a residential home, but nobody seems home. Bit of poetry there for you, I guess. Some graffiti. A keypad. So that one should be immediately suspicious. There's a fancy lock for a pretty ugly looking door. Maybe there's something in there, but we don't have any idea how to get in right now. And more. I'm getting some good points from my investigation because I'm actually going through and checking each of them, as each location as I go along, doing the right thing, being aware. Nothing but a creepy warehouse there. So I guess the next place to go is the bars here. Now you should remember this quote, or this line, that the whole thing reminds me of Kamakura and that girl, because that's an important thing that we will be flashing back to down the track. Important moment. So now we've investigated everything. As you can see, nothing there. So we need to... I can't actually remember exactly what I need to do to trigger the narrative to move forward at this point. Nope, she doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to talk. Then none of them want to talk to me. This is a good question. Ah, there we go. That's a hell of a thing to just dump on somebody you've only just met. That's a little bit personal, Daizo. I'm not sure I really wanted to know that about you right now. But thanks for sharing. I'm doing a good job as an investigator. Anyway, now that I know the ringing's coming from the dumpster, I need to go back to the dumpster. There we go. So I can inspect the lock, listen. I can definitely hear something, I'm sure. She knows him that well that she knows his phone ring by its sound. Now, how do I break the door? That's the question. Somebody in the building has a key, so perhaps I'll meet somebody. Whoa! Are the endings equal, or is there a true one? Honestly, and it's really hard to actually kind of explain this without giving things away. I would say that there's no true ending because the point of the story is not the ending. The ending is kind of a conclusion, but ideally you want to look at this game from a number of different angles to see the way that the various plot threads work and the implications of various decisions and whatever you make. So it's really kind of it works in such a lot of different grey areas, I guess is the point I'm making here. And they there's kind of no one right answer as such. So as a result, there's no one right ending. So that's a long way of me saying basically I don't think there is a true ending. Yes, this game can get very creepy. And it's not just the kind of the jump scares like we saw there with the girl flashing on the screen. Those are kind of, I guess those are the weaker moments of horror within this game. Some of the stuff that happens when it even is just kind of described is really grim. The best way I can kind of compare it is perhaps to Seven, if you've seen the film Seven, the David Fincher one with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman and Kevin Spacey in it. That movie and this game have a very similar tone. That movie is obviously about New York and America. This one's about Japan. But they have a very similar vibe to them. And that's the way I like to compare them, I think. Compare this game, if I try to describe it in terms of something that a lot of people have seen, I would generally describe it as a Seven kind of thing. Anyway, this guy really annoys me, so I haven't been paying attention. Kobayashi is perhaps the most frustrating character in this game. He's a loser. But he is useful right now. He's got a key. Give me the key. Just give me the key, Kobayashi. There we go. We moved on from here, thank goodness. Let's get this phone out of the dumpster. That bag is suspicious, isn't it? That does not sound like something I really want to do, actually. Yes, this is the Kobayashi Maru of getting the key. Love it. Do I look? Do I open? Do I look? Do I open? It's like ripping a band-aid, isn't it? We better just open it and see. Let's do it. Ew. What's in the box? Exactly. That's perfect. That is perfect. Sanity go down, yes. Sanity and just about everything else. Nothing left in the stomach after seeing that. Well, there's an instruction that I don't think we necessarily want to follow. I don't know if we want to go into the sewer right now, do we? Sanity drop. That's not going to be the first time that happens. The only time that happens is run. Let's do it. Let's enter. Ah. So we can't just enter right away. Yeah. You never know, these might belong to the same universe. We just haven't explored that yet, did he? They might be. So we can't get in. We need to find somebody who lets us in. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna save you the frustration of watching me go through every single one and like I did the first time I played and try and talk to every single character again. I know exactly who we need to speak to. You can probably guess anyway. We need to speak to the old perv. He knows everything, the old perv. Yeah, I've actually read some... Sorry, the comment here. It's a little cringe. Her Western put honorifics, even if it's set in Japan. It's a difficult one. I think translators really work with because honorifics are a pretty important part of discourse in Japan. You know, how you refer to the person that you're talking to actually matters a great deal in terms of just the way you communicate, and it's important to somehow reflect that. But that doesn't translate well into English because we don't have honorifics in English. So whether you keep them, dump them, try something else, it's actually it's something that I've actually read quite a lot of debate about from translators about how they actually manage it. Because this is like a little hole in the wall hostess bar. It's not club. It's something that's meant to be a little bit different, I think. Oops. So, because I keep talking to him and I've creeped him out, now my neurosis has apparently jumped up. That was a mistake. I think I need to talk to her. Apparently not. This game is, firstly, it's set in Japan, and secondly, it is a game that was made by foreigners who have lived in Japan for long enough that they, you know, obviously feel, well, not native, but they're part of the culture. They're part of the Japanese experience. So this is kind of a unique game in that sense, that it is both is and is not a Japanese project, I think, is a fair way of characterizing it. It's fascinating stuff anyway. Anyway, why can't I enter? I completely forgot. It's the old man that knows how to get in there. I just can't remember what I need to do to trigger that conversation. It has been a while since I played this game, and you do forget the actual process of doing things with adventure games like this. So sorry about this. I'm going to have to figure it out bit by bit. Ah, okay. I had to talk to him first because he knows the fat guy can get in there. That's how it works. No, it didn't lower her sanity. It increased her neurosis, which is the opposite of So anyway, that guy just told us that the old fat man, which is from the club, he was caught climbing out of the sewer, so he knows how to get in there. Here you go. Neurosis is the opposite of, I can't remember what the opposite side stat is. Anyway, neurosis is a different statistic to sanity. I think the higher it increases, the more intense you get. Which, again, just impacts on how the narrative plays out. Anyway, now I definitely have proof that he knows how to get into the sewer, so you're going to tell me, mate. And now I'm going to threaten him. Oh, you don't know the half of the story about why he was in the sewer. You'll find that out soon enough. It's much worse than you were imagining. Yes, they belong to the people. They should be used for the people, by the people. I guess for various different activities. Don't know if I would take women in there. I don't know if that's the kind of ideal date spot for me, but, you know, what works for some people. Actually, speaking of, I've got a funny story I have to share. There's a show that I really like to watch in Japan, which is called Matsuko's Wonderful World or something or other. Anyway, there's a person in Japan. His name is Matsuko, and he's quite a famous host. Anyway, each episode of that show, he gets these kind of celebrities on, well, not celebrities, these otaku, these kind of specialists in one area or another, on to really discuss their passion, and it can range from everything. There are people there that get on that are specialists in gyoza or curries or any number of different foods, or they're really interested in bird watching or dancing or whatever. One time he got this couple on, and what the guy was, the guy worked for the city council in the waste management area, and the woman, I think it was that, or maybe it was the other way around. Either way, the woman actually liked to go into sewer spaces and take photos. That was her thing, and that's how they met, and they have this great relationship going on. And it was a fascinating story. It was a weird television, I can tell you what, and a weird hobby to bond over, but it is what it is. Anyway, that was a digression. Sorry about that. Not on that show. Not on that show. So, because I threatened that guy's life, I lost some professionalism, but I did get a higher boost to my investigation skills. So as we can see, already I am quite the investigator. Plus 27. It's just everything else that's kind of fading away, but that's alright. When you're looking to rescue your partner, maybe investigation's the only statistic that matters. Now we should be able to enter. And we're in the sewer. Did that help your professionalism score, sitting on his lap? That's gross. Seeing that probably took a few years off my life. Imagine actually leaving that in the sewer. I mean, if he's that kind of person, surely he'd like to carry that along as a souvenir from his exploits. And I've lost sanity because of it. I can totally sympathise. That's even worse than the meat, that is. That guy's such a creep. He's so terrible. Okay. Now that's a useful little thing just to remember, that the fact that this sewer actually has a torii gate in there, because this game does delve into quite a few Shinto themes, And that's the first indication you get that this game not just has that real world noir atmosphere and narrative, it also has some Japanese spirituality about it, and how that kind of contrasts and conflicts with the modern Tokyo life. It is a interesting little sub-story that goes on within the game. Hey, no, definitely never kink shame. If being strung up and leaving photos around in sewers is your thing, then good for you. I just honestly, that is that's a fascinating thing that you just don't necessarily want to come across until you prepared yourself. Let's put it that way. Okay, so we need to go down now, I think. No, still something I'm missing. I need to... Ah. Okay, so rather than go and get a rope, which I probably should have done, I decided to take a jump down the sewer gate, and as a result I lost points of both my sanity and my investigation, and as you can see, my sanity rating is now starting to drop a little bit concerningly, but boom. That's going to do it. Oh, did he? The pervert's... Yeah, I didn't want to talk to him again. I'll take the hit to my sanity and investigation skills, just to not have to talk to him again. Okay, so this is obviously a dramatic moment. The partner's there, his hands have been bound, his head is now covered in a sack, and there is a girl wearing a very Murray Rose costume that is holding a knife and is threatening him, and this is a certain type of kink, I guess. This is a fan service for Friday night. Oh, Soul Calibur's Amy. Well, there you go. I saw Murray Rose because I see the costume. Also the Twin Tails. They're red rather than blonde, but Twin Tails be Twin Tails. Six months ago in Kamakura, Kazuki being the partner, and I encountered her in a hostage situation gone wrong. She died. So that's creepy. She died, but now she's back and holding a hostage. How does that happen? Ghost story. Looking pretty good for a zombie, though. Not turning green just yet. Not having kind of torn flesh hanging around the place. Looking very, very healthy. Healthy for a return from the dead. Now, I'm not going to give away what happens just yet. You've probably not been following like the specifics of the writing here, but I actually really like the writing in this little section. It's very Raymond Chandler. So I've got a countdown. Do I draw my gun? Do I draw my gun? Do I draw my gun? What do I do? What do I do? Do I talk to him or drop the knife? Let's try and be the professional police person here. Drop the knife. See? Professional +5. I did the right thing. at least as far as police ethics are concerned. Yes, that's true. There are moments in this game where the aesthetics could be perhaps improved, but we are talking about a game that maybe 5 people made, so you just handle those kind of smaller interface issues. Actually, overall the game's quite beautiful, especially the backgrounds. You'll see some more hopefully this play. Some of the art in this game is absolutely spectacular. She's looking a bit more like a zombie there. Yeah, I do know what you mean there. I do agree. The use of italics for emphasis actually does work when you're going to do a lot of emphasis through the text. So one of the things that I found interesting about this game is the first time I played it through, this all seemed very straightforward, if a little bit laboured in terms of how it was presented and the dialogue in particular. But again, as you get through this game, all of the context around what happens in this scene becomes very clear, and it's actually a very powerful scene. As far as kind of the crime, noir, horror, and all the rest come together, this is a really high kind of impact scene. So the second time I played the game through, this scene meant a lot. And it's kind of one of those scenes where every word you kind of hang on and there's some kind of density to it. So it's really well written. Very well written. It does come across as that, I know, but it does... Whether you get a chance to play the game or not, I don't know, but it has an intensity to it that becomes clear with context. So another reference to the dark, you may have picked that up earlier. There's now 2 references to the dark in this. The dark is a very thing. I don't want to give it away just in case you haven't played the game and then want to go and experience it for yourself. But just remember the word dark, because it is not an absence of light. It is an actual thing in this game. It's a good mask. It's a very nice mask. You would have seen it flash up a couple of times on the screen. Running out of time, running out of time. What do I do? Backup's coming. Oops. A bit of determinism in there if you want to get philosophical. You could never have stopped this. Oh, thanks for joining, Britta, and hope you enjoyed it. We'll probably actually stream this again. I have been enjoying doing this, and I think this one's a good one worth talking about, so thank you, and yeah, we'll talk soon. Well, that's not a good thing. She kept on smiling as she drew the blade across his neck. That's not going to end well. Oops. Not a pretty sight, apparently. It is. It's very sad. This whole game has a melancholy about it too. As you, when you start to play, you imagine it's kind of a horror game, and you just kind of imagine it as just that. But then, yeah, it definitely has a melancholy about it, which is quite common for Japanese horror. It's a common approach, but yeah, it certainly hit you in the feels. Speaking of Borderlands, I actually do have a review code for that on Switch. I don't know if I'm going to find the time, and necessarily I don't know if I want to waste the space on my memory card with it, but I do have a review code of it, and I could play it, I guess. The very little bit of Borderlands I did play, I was not the biggest fan of in the world. Anyway. Your choices can't stop her at that point, no. There's no way of kind of skipping through to a happy ending in which your partner survives. But, again, as you play on, when you get to the actual endings, the looping nature of this game makes those decisions still relevant. 49 gigabytes. If it is actually 49 gigabytes, I ain't touching it for sure. I've also got Bioshock and XCOM, both of which I'm marginally more interested in than Borderlands. But whether I play any of them or not, I don't know. Yeah, the game definitely hits you pretty hard. I don't know how I can say this without necessarily giving stuff away to the people who haven't seen it, but oh, I know. The scene with the photo was the one that hit me the hardest, if you remember that scene, Christian, when you discover the photo and just what happens around it. I'm actually looking forward to Destroy All Humans, and I may well do that. I can also confirm that I am doing a Last of Us 2 review, which you can all look forward to in a way. Let's talk to the cat. while we're chatting about things. She actually called the cat Lady Fluffington, which, if you ask me, should be grounds to confiscate the cat, because that is an animal, that's a case of animal abuse. But obviously it's pretty well looked after cat, I imagine. They're a pretty well off family. Lady Fluffington. Yes, in those rooms. That's the one. Yeah, you know exactly which one I'm talking about, Christian. And the bondage photo is nothing on the photo I'm talking about. We won't get to it tonight by any means, but I may well stream this through all the way, just so I can keep chatting about some of the heavier stuff that comes towards the end. Nya. So nya is the sound that cats make in Japan. When in Australia and I imagine America and England or whatever, it's meow. In Japan, it's nya. Yeah, that scene really hits you. Really, really hits you. It's a good scene for what it's trying to do. It definitely achieves its purpose, but it's certainly an eye-opening moment. Oh, I see. How would you pronounce that? Meow? Meow? A little bit similar to English, then. M-E-O-W. Meow. Japanese is when you add the nya at the end of your sentences. Only if you work for at one of the maid cafes as a cat, one of the cat themed maid cafes, then you have to add nya to everything. So the good thing is, if you hang out with your cat, it improves your sanity, which I don't know if the people who designed this game have ever owned a cat, because the reality is quite the opposite. But yeah, playing with your cat actually improves your sanity and decreases your neurosis, so it's good for your health overall. We do get to more of that stuff, I promise. That's a lot of things to read. But obviously, it just basically explains why Kazuki is off to what he's done. A shrine, red paint, etc, etc, etc. You can read that, you don't need to. That's why they've got the little screen effect, just to make sure that you don't feel like the need to read it. The indication, the interface indicates that you don't need to look at it. I guess we've got to go to the bedroom now. Cat toy. Maneki Neko. So for people who haven't been to Japan, you'll see these cats around everywhere. They're basically put in the front of shops and whatever. They actually welcome you to the shop. That's what they're kind of a good luck thing. And an invitation to come into the shop. That's what they symbolize. They're everywhere in Japan. I've never seen a stuffed one, funnily enough, so I assume they must exist, but I've only ever seen porcelain ones. I don't know if I like I said, I really don't know if owning a cat is good for your sanity. I've owned cats all my life, and I wouldn't necessarily say that they're the most accommodating animals in terms of mental health. I mean, there's all kinds of studies, I guess, that make people feel better to have them, but they can be pretty obnoxious animals. I do love cats. I should clarify. I actually do love cats. I'm a rabbit person these days, but like I said, grew up all my life with cats. Very lovely animals. Any detective. And the front leg, yes. Okay, so running through that. The paw that's up is the front leg, and generally, I mean, you can get wind-up versions of them as well, which are not porcelain, they're plastic, but the cat actually moves that arm up and down to welcome you in, because in Japan, it's like a scooping action to encourage somebody to come, and that's what the cat's action, arm action imitates. And then any Detective Ito Dakimakura merch. I don't think so. I don't think this game quite took off to the point that they started to make Dakimakura. There's probably not even any Rule 34 for Detective Ito. It's probably that minor of a character, I would imagine. Saying that, if you go and Google it now, you'll probably find Rule 34 Detective Ito. So playing with the cat again boosted my sanity and dropped my neurosis, so I'm in a pretty good spot right now. One weird thing, which I've never quite resolved, is the fact that this takes place 6 months beforehand, but all the stats are from the place they were 6 months ahead of time. I've never resolved that. It's one of those things I just don't question. Okay, so now we've got the knock, and then another character has dropped in to say hello. That paper bag looks remarkably familiar. Exactly the same shape. Creamy curry donuts, though. I do like creamy curry donuts. Japan has the best donut culture in the world. I'm just putting that out there. Mr. Donut is great, but everywhere you go, you get just the most amazing donuts. They really do like them. Burn the bag. Not a donut fan. How are the chilies hidden in the batter? This really does sound like my kind of donut, actually. The more chili you put in the food, the more I like it. There's a curry chain in Japan called Koko Curry where you can actually select how hot you like the curries from 1 to 10. And I always order... I actually say to the staff I want an 11, and they always find that amusing and then give me a 10. But, you know, the hotter the curry, the better for me. Yes, donut. All I see lately... This is the very definition of a nosy neighbour. Convenience store box lunches and junk food. You need to take care of yourself. I'm sorry, but convenience store boxed lunches are great. I could live off those in Japan easily. The real, yeah, she's a bit on edge, isn't she? She's a bit of that nosy type that you know something's going on with her. I'd be happy to cook for you two too. That's remarkably generous, and I don't trust you at all. True that. True that. The hotness of the food is not proportional to the hotness of the eater. It's bad enough with you clomping around at night. I am beneath you, you know. Yep, she's going to kill him. True story. The number one reason that there are neighbour on neighbour deaths, murders, is because you can hear your neighbour's feet clomping around on the floor. That drives you nuts. Have lived in an apartment like that. Did definitely want to offer to cook them food, I can put it that way. Straightforward. Straightforward being a problem. You guys are driving me nuts tonight. It was reassuring to hear you loosen up. See, I told you there was some fan service in this game. Holes in the floor she uses. Okay, so we've all decided that Yumi's actually the real villain of the whole game, and we're all going to discover that she's the one that done it all. She even put on the red wig, just so she could pretend to be the dead girl, just so she could slaughter her husband, partner. Tokyo for the room. The donut spoke to her. Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so after all of that, that was a mood-setting little scene, just to remind us all that these characters had a domestic life, I guess, before the drama started. Now we've got a little bit more noirish kind of little text, which is, again, quite well written, if the interface is not quite as nice as it could be. Yeah, he is a little bit. This is a game about very strong women, which is a... You might have already figured out. One way or another, they're all very strong women. Okay, so now we are at Kamakura. And in particular, we are at Kita Kamakura Station. Now, one of the things that really caught me way back when I first played this game was the fact that you got to go to Kita Kamakura. This is, I kid you not, this is my favourite place in Japan. The first time I went to Kita Kamakura was the first time I went to Japan, which was the winter about 11 years ago now. And I was immediately in love with it. It's this very kind of country area, very, not country, very kind of rural, not rural either. It's kind of, it's not suburban because it's so far out of the suburbs. It's kind of technically within Tokyo, but it has the most beautiful temples and shrines around this area. It's got this, there's this really lovely museum, which at the time was a kind of Japanese doll museum. It's changed since, but it's all these lovely old buildings. It's very traditional. And yeah, the first time I went there, I said that I wanted to one day retire in Kita Kamakura, and I've been back a couple of times since. It has stayed my favorite place in Japan by a considerable margin. So having this actually depicted in this game, and it is beautiful, just like it is in real life, is just, yeah, it was a special moment. I have been to Okayama. I have indeed. I have been to a lot of places in Japan now. I counted not too long ago. I think it was something like 80 different cities and major regions within the country, most of which on the main island, but I'm starting to explore a bit further as well. But again, Kita Kamakura and Kamakura in general is definitely a special place for me. It means a lot. And really does look this beautiful. The station is this gorgeous. The aesthetics of that area is so lovely. Not there, I haven't. No, I have not been to those hot springs. I have been to plenty of hot springs, just not that one. Guidebooks, maps, the internet, all silly toys for amateurs. I've got it all up here. And funnily enough, that sounds silly, that reads silly, but that is actually the best way to explore Japan, is to get rid of all the kind of tourist guides and suggestions that you'll come across. Actually talk to locals as much as possible, and go to the places that are out of the way, because, for example, you wouldn't see Kita Kamakura on too many guidebooks. It probably doesn't rate too highly on Yelp or whatever they use, TripAdvisor. It probably does not rate too highly on TripAdvisor as a place to go, but I would recommend it number one of all of Japan to go to. Yes, there are a lot of hot springs just for your feet. I have had that experience. There was, funnily enough, it wasn't even a hot spring. There is a open air art gallery museum in Hakone, which is about an hour and a half outside of Tokyo. It's kind of the place that the Tokyoites go to for their escape from the city for the weekend trips. And in that open air museum gallery, there is a place where you can have a coffee and have a foot bath. And because that museum is quite large, by the time you get to the cafe, you definitely want to rest your feet for a bit. So that was a nice experience. No, I have not been to a hostess club. I am a happily married dude, so that's not an activity that I would firstly be able to swing, and secondly be particularly interested in the first place. That's just one of the things that I certainly don't hope I'll ever experience in Japan. Security at this kind of train station. She's asking whether there's cameras and stuff. No, not at a train station this local. Camera. Maid cafes are just kind of off-brand hostess clubs. So maid cafe is pretty much the same deal. You pay a lot of money to have a woman serve you food, and the difference is with a hostess club, they'll talk to you about politics or business or whatever. They actually hire very intelligent people at hostess clubs because they need people that can actually talk with men on a level that interests the men. Whereas a maid cafe is more about just giving the guys a bit of entertainment. So they'll do silly little cat dances or bless your food with a little wave of a wand or whatever. It's all very cute and charming, but you do pay a fortune for it because it is just like a hostess club. Everything is about twice as much as what you'd pay anywhere else. Whatever happens in Japan stays in Japan. It's just a little bit difficult when my wife's actually in Japan with me. It's not like I can just say, hey, I'm sneaking off for a couple of hours and then go and disappear into a hostess club, is it? No, I didn't mean that. I did not mean that only the most intelligent women are qualified to talk to men. What I meant was that the clientele of those hostess clubs tend to be wealthy, kind of upper-level businessmen who want to talk about nonsense like business and politics and stuff. And the goal of the hostess women is to provide that, because that's just the nature. You don't have standard people or artists or whatever walking off the street. A lot of the hostess clubs you can't even get into without having an existing membership or being invited by a member. So they definitely prefer to hire university women, because they're the ones that will have the conversations that those men are looking for if they're off work hours. This guy's a bit of a character, actually. I like him. He's a bit clueless, but unlike the warehouse guy from earlier, this guy's not annoying about it. he's just a bit of a fool, a bit of a clown. He doesn't even know which direction this shrine is, left or right. Sorry, directions aren't really my thing. Okay, so we've been playing for a bit now, an hour and a half. Well, not quite an hour and a half, an hour and 20 minutes. We might hold it here because we're about to get into another pretty solid bit of narrative. I think I will play this one again next week for DDNet After Dark because it is certainly adult themed, and yeah, it's been really good to chat to you all about this game as we've been playing, and it gets much more exciting from here as well. The events keep on coming. So thanks as always for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. You'll be able to catch the next stream tomorrow morning where we'll be doing some more Tokyo Xanadu as we started last week for the JRPG stream. Otherwise, if I don't catch you there, I hope you have a great weekend. Hope you get to play lots of games, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.